Hi.
Hello.
Didn't notice. I got the message that I'm like running too long with dleaf. So, oops. Oops. And that's the wrong link. So I'm just going to delete this whole bullet point. All right. And then show. Hi, Devorah. How are you?
I am good. How is it going for you? You all set?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for your help earlier.
Yeah. No, sorry. I just wasn't looking at the chat. I'll get the.
People will be joining you soon.
Oh, it looks like we already have.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
All right. Okay. Oh, this one's webinar style. Okay. Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. You can ignore some of this because this is a webinar format. So we're going to really dive into tools. I have some sections where the plan had been to work where you try it out on your own. However, I won't really be able to answer a lot of questions since we're in a webinar format. So it will just be some blocks of time where you're going to go and practice on your own. This session is going to be going deep into so this is looking at the assignments tab in Google Classroom. We're kind of doing one level up from the very basic intro for Google Classroom. So if you're totally new to Google Classroom, you are absolutely welcome to stay. However, some of the basics like creating a classroom and putting in some of the initial settings, we're not going to spend a lot of time in. So if you feel like it'd be better to go to another session, we totally understand. All right, we're gonna get started. And I am screen sharing. Okay. All right, so my name is Andrew Piper. I'm a teacher on special assignment with the digital learning team. I focus with the the high school cohort. And if you have questions about anything you see today with Google, it will probably be, if you submit a help desk ticket, it will probably come to me. But always use help desk or call this number to reach help desk, and they'll get you to the member of our team who's going to be best to answer your question. And my moderator, Kathleen, if you'd introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, my name is Kathleen Kennedy, and I'm a digital learning integration designer with the high school cohort working alongside Xander. So we're excited to share some cool features with you today.
We're very excited Kathleen joined us this year, and she's already just absolutely such a dynamo. So I will not be able to see the Q&A, but Kathleen will be watching and monitoring, and I believe she's able to, I'm slightly new to the webinar format, so but she will be looking at anything you guys put into the Q&A, and we'll stop and we'll get those addressed, or she'll answer them directly in the chat. So please make use of that. All right. So we're going to look at the assignments tab in Google Classroom. We're going to go over the different assignment types, and we're going to discuss how to best leverage the different types. What is best to use when and how to do it. We have some other Google sessions today. If you are, you can go back and rewatch some of the session 1 and session 2s. I did one on Jamboard, Google Forms and quizzes for assessment, which are kind of like more advanced. But there's also some of the basic ones that have been put out there. So these are some places to maybe go back later and look at these webinars if you're interested in learning more about Google tools in education. Our norms today, since it's webinar format, most of this is kind of by default, but one of the big ones at the end, take what you can today and come back more for more later. It's almost impossible for us to design a session that meets everyone right where they're at. So if you're feeling like it's a lot all at once, just step back, let it wash over you, get a vision for what is possible, And Google does a really good job of creating lots of different tutorials that you can just type into Google, how do I do this? And you will find the Google site does a really great job of walking you through all these tools. But this can just be a great orientation for that. We're going to keep moving, and okay. So we've done opening moves. We're going to make a demo class for workshop time, because we will be trying to give you time to play with the tools yourself. And that will require your own classroom. We're going to do some more content that is walking through each of the different things and playing each time. We were going to have 20 minutes for a going deeper work time, where it was going to be kind of more up to you. But with us running behind, we'll probably just be focusing on, I introduce a topic and then I give you some time to work on it. You will need a classroom to play around in. So you can make a test one, or you can get started on one that you've already used for you're going to use this year. You can always delete things in Google Classroom. You can just not assign something, and so it never goes to the student feed. Make your choice. What's going to be best for you? Making a fake one to work with, or are you going to get started with one? But you'll need to have that ready. So I'm going to pause. And one way you can do it is, well, actually on the next slide, there are two ways to get to Google Classroom. You can go to classroom.google.com, or you can go to the waffle menu at the top of your a Google Doc screen, or the Google search screen. You find the waffle menu, and then you go to Classroom, which has this little icon there, and that will bring you to Google Classroom. And then you're able to create a class by pressing this plus button in Google Classroom. And so I'm going to give about a few minutes to go to classroom.google.com or use the waffle and create a class so that you can practice during our workshop time. I'm just going to give about 3 minutes. And then we're going to move on to the next one. So apologies. I want to keep it kind of moving fast, but you can say in the chat at the end, when I say at the end of 3 minutes, if you need some extra time, we can try and see giving some extra time. But just as a reminder, you go to classroom.google.com or use the waffle and find the classroom icon. You'll get to this page. You're going to press the plus button and then create a class. We have about 2 minutes left. And I'll be working myself in a demo class. I actually always like having a demo class just to play around with and try out. But if you want to get started on your classroom for this year, go for that too. Right. So about a minute and a half more. Hopefully this is enough time. It can be a little tricky without the chat to my normal engagement checks, but we have about a minute left. It's really exciting to see everyone who's here today.
I think Zareen just came in and turned on the chat, so that feature is now enabled.
Fantastic. So we have a minute left. If you could just let people know let Kathleen know if you could use a little more time. Or if you're finished, that can be helpful to know that there are people out there who have their Google Classroom. Oh, and look at Zandy's in here. I was so excited. I was hoping I'd see you, Zandy. right. And with 30 more seconds, just having a class, Kathleen, have we seen any comments about whether we could extend time, or are people saying they're able to kind of start a class up?
I haven't seen any questions in there, so I'm hoping that means folks were able to create their classrooms.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay, so yes, I have the chat. All right, so I'm hearing. All right, fantastic. Okay, so we're going to move to that we already did. Okay, so we are going to be focusing mostly in the Classwork tab. The Classwork tab is where we're going to do all our assignments. When you join Google Classroom first, it will always default to the stream. This is actually one of the things that I always really struggled to explain to my students, that the stream is not where they see the most information about their work. It is in the Classwork tab. So you go to the Classwork tab, and that's when you are able to find this button that says Create. And you get a couple different choices when you click Create when you're creating classwork. So I'm going to go over them. You have an assignment. This is kind of a default idea for assignment for anything you do. This is going to be what you're using like 90% of the time almost. And in effect, Google Classroom is basically like a really fancy way of organizing Drive. So assignment is just a place to put a file attached to a student that also has a gradebook attached to it. There is also quiz assignment. Again, kind of just a fancy way to say a Google form, and it's able to have a Google form that is have points associated with it, and it's gradable. Question, that is just one short question. It can be open-ended, or it can be multiple choice that you just present. It's normally a nice, real quick check for understanding, way to get things started, but it is a very, very short section, but it shows up more in the stream. It's more visual, and it allows students to, sorry, I'm going to close down the back channel because that is pinging over here. So the question can be a really great short little way to engage students, but it's also more visible in the ecosphere where the assignments are kind of tucked away in the students' drives. Material is a file you're sharing that you don't want the students to do anything with. It's basically a great way to share a study guide or something you want to check out, or a rubric at the beginning of the unit so they know what they're going to eventually be responsible for, but aren't engaging with yet. And of course, one of the best things is the reuse post. That means go back to another classroom that you've already done and take something you've already made and put it in your classroom. And my gosh, if this is not one of the best parts about Google Classroom, for when suddenly you are told that your field trip is canceled and you suddenly have to put together a lesson, it is really, really nice to be able to just go and reuse post and pick out that old webinar, web quest you made years ago, and just throw it on your screen. And then topic is not really an assignment at all, but it just breaks the assignments down into different organizational chunks. That could be by date, it could be by topic. There's lots of different ways you can use the topic function. We're not going to spend too much time discussing that in this class, in this session today. So what does each one do, and when are you going to want to use it? Assignments are great because they can be graded. They can also have a rubric attached. We're going to spend some time looking at Google rubrics and how they work in Classroom. They are not auto grading though. That you, if you put an assignment and you attach a Google Doc with multiple choice questions, you're going to have to go and manually grade it. The teacher can share files and assignments, probably in the most varied ways, and we'll go through all the different ways teachers can share files. Assignments is the best way to share, as like different types of sharing with students. Students can share files back. They don't need to just respond to a Google Doc that you've you've sent, students can upload a video they made. It can be a great way to do a drawing, a photo of something they saw out in the world outside the classroom. It's a really great way to give students ability to even make a choice, right? Just upload anything that demonstrates you understand, what the topic that we covered in class today. Give the students that power to do that. Students can get their own copy of a doc or a sheet or a presentation that you made. Assignments is the only one that can do that. So assignments are going to be those hyperdocs, those presentation templates that you want students to add their own material to. Assignments is all in there. Quiz assignments also have a lot of great features, many of the same features. One of the things I want to point out, the teachers can put in YouTube files into a quiz. They can put in movies, images, and students can share files. We went over this in my other Google session. You can have in a quiz, you can respond with a file. It could be a photo of their notebook, right? How did you solve the problem? They can take a photo with their phone of their handwritten explanation and they can upload it into a quiz and then it can be graded. The other great thing about quiz assignments and questions, which I really like, is that there's a lot of features for showing the responses of the class up on the board in a way where it takes the students' names away. So this can be a really powerful tool after you've done a quiz or after you've had all your students ask a question. Then you project it up on your board at the front of the classroom and you can say like, hey, let's look at the thinking that's already going on in this class. We see that like some people are really on it. Some people seem to be confused. What do we need to do to clear up that confusion? Can be a very powerful tool. You can share the responses with students and let them see each other's thinking. And then of course, material, it's the most restricted. It is purely any kind of file uploaded, Google file that is able to just be shared, not really interacted with in any way. I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions. Kathleen, can you see the webinar chat?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
No questions right now, just some cheering on that it's awesome to reuse posts to share with other teachers.
Yeah, and that is definitely a great thing. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the grades, because that is one of the things that Google Classroom is so great about, is that it can create workflows that are really helpful and speed up your time and make your life a little bit easier. So when we set up grades in your classroom, you'll see there is this gear icon up here under class settings. That's where you're going to set up your grade book in Google Classroom. Now, the caveat I'm going to make is we as a district use Synergy as our grading software. The understanding by admin and everyone is that what is in Synergy is what a student's final grade is. And so why that's important is if you set up your class settings here and you don't make sure all the math is totally right, or if you have some assignments that aren't going into Google Classroom, we're going to want to make sure students aren't confused about what their grade is. Their grade in Google Classroom or their grade in Synergy. This was not something that I was very careful about the first time I used Google Classroom, and students had an A in Google Classroom because they did all the Google Classroom stuff, but I had a couple things they weren't turning in outside of Google Classroom, and they were in a very rude awakening in the fall grade window, and I had no idea that they weren't checking Synergy. So we're going to make some recommendations for that based on our district. So you can set your grading periods. I am going to suggest you do not set your grading periods because you want Synergy to handle all of that, and it could be confusing to students. Also, we are going to recommend that you have no overall grade for your class, and that will automatically shut off show overall grade to class. The reason we do that is you then let them know for the individual grades on the assignments, you can check those in Google Classroom. But if you want to know what you're getting on your report card, you have to go to Synergy. It keeps them checking Synergy and it doesn't confuse them, because if it says that, hey, you've turned in all your Google Classroom work, so you've got an A, but they haven't turned in a bunch of projects that you're not grading through Google Classroom, that stops that confusion. Even if you have the Google Sync, which we're only going to touch on really briefly, so that your Google Classroom syncs to Synergy, it's not a perfect sync. You will get slightly numbers very often. I know that I don't care if a student has an 87 or an 89 versus an 89, but you will hear from a student who has an 87 in Google Classroom and an 89 in Synergy. And it will never quite be right. It will be pretty close. But we always recommend you turn off the no overall grade. And then what you can also do here, though, is you can create your grade categories. And your grade categories can be the way that you divide something up. The very traditional way of doing this would be a grade category for like homework, or a grade category for tests. If you're, we are really, really hoping and advocating for moving away from having a grade category around participation. The current recommendation, your grade book is your own. The current recommendation is, if you are going to use grade categories, think about standards and chunks of standards rather than thinking of things like homework versus tests. So that's just kind of out there as how you can set up your grade categories. And also note that this might not sync very well with Synergy. So you can do it in Google Classroom. It's, again, a recommendation, especially if you're not really familiar, a really advanced user of Classroom and Synergy. Just don't use Google grade categories at all in Google Classroom. I'm going to pause for any questions on any of that. I know it's basically, I'm showing you this page of settings and saying, don't use any of it. But the reason is Synergy is our gradebook. All right, I'm going to keep moving. Then the great thing is you get the grades page, where after you're all done, it's your Friday, you're catching up on grading. You can go in and you can see immediately all your different students. You can see who hasn't been graded yet, who's missing work, and you can make a really easy workflow of just clicking around and finding what you need to do, what you still need to do. It's a lot easier in my hand than when I had the stack of papers just like all over my desk. And, I'd be going through tests and suddenly I'd find a paper that was written for my other class. And I'd be like, how did this get in here? This is what I love about Google Classroom, is that it keeps everything really tightly and visually organized, so I can know exactly who still needs to be graded and for what. And they've added a new section that is new, because Google Classroom is always creating new ways of interacting with it. They have the to review page, and this makes it really easy for you to quickly at a glance see what assignments still need to be graded, how many people have turned them in, and you can switch between classes. So right now on this example, all classes are selected. But if I'm really only focusing on my English class and not my history class, I can use this drop-down menu to select just one class that I want to look at. Also, this, they call it the kebab menu. Some people do that, or the snowman menu. You can open that up and you can say, marked as fully reviewed. And that can be really great for those students who don't turn things in until the last minute, and you want to just kind of close it out. And you're like, hey, the time period is over. You can use that to say, I've already reviewed that, take it out of my queue of things to review. So this is a really great place to make a really tight, quick, and efficient workflow. Okay, and so just as a reminder, so our graded recommended settings are no overall grade. And if you are going to do grade categories, which is not recommended, strive for simplicity, make as few categories as possible so it's not confusing. Not large differences between categories. This is one of the ones we see where someone's like, well, I'm going to do 90% of my grade be tests and quizzes and 10% of my grade be homework. And then you have students who are like trying to do so much homework and it won't raise their grade and they can't understand why. Try and avoid those kinds of things is the recommendation from the district. And if you are going to categorize, think about categorizing by standards rather than type. So we're going to do a short time to go explore the gear, play around with changing those settings, but then you can go back to the recommended settings of no periods, no grade categories, and no overall calculation. But we do want to give you a chance to explore that and familiarize with that. So I'm going to give you guys about just a 4-minute timer, just in the interest of time, and because we're not asking you to do too much, but just to play around. So I'm going to start a 4-minute timer for that. Yep. My 4-minute timer restarted. Okay. Starting a 3-minute timer now. Oh, and thank you for the notice about the slides. I will fix that right now.
I updated, oh, needs access. I updated it because I had the wrong link in there.
Oh, okay.
They were just both linked to the rubric.
Oh, okay.
But I thought I fixed it, but maybe it's an access from your side.
Okay, so I have anyone with the link can view the slide deck now, and I've posted the link in the chat, and I apologize for that.
I was trying to fix it behind the scenes, but
Yay, great. Thank you so much, Angie. Every time I try so hard to make sure that that doesn't happen, and one of my sessions that happens. So Google Sync add grading periods to Google Classroom. Yes, that's actually probably one of the few things on the Google Sync that is actually very happens very automatically and very seamlessly. It uses the date that you assign something, and it assigns it to the Synergy grading blocks in Synergy, pretty much without you having to do anything. The thing that gets tricky if you want to change that, if you want something that you assign in the fall to count towards a spring grade, then it can get a little tricky. But if you're turning on the Google Sync, which we're going to touch on very briefly at some point in this, the grade periods will automatically sync. So since grading is not or the grade tab, it's important to know it's there, and it's important to know how it works because it's going to show up when we look at assignments. But since we're not asking you to do much, I am going to keep moving. If there are any questions about the grade tab, we will pause. But if you didn't get to explore all the features, don't worry, because we're pretty much telling you just turn off overall grade calculation and moving on. All right. So let's get into, Google Synergy Sync. Here it is. So the Google Synergy, so Synergy is our gradebook app, and we have worked with, so EduPoint, who makes Synergy, has worked really hard to create a way for them to pull the money out of Google. And it works that way because we have a client relationship with Synergy in a way we don't really have with Google. They much more put out their product, and that's their product. Synergy, we have people who actually are programming it to make it work with our district. That said, Google is always changing things and making little adjustments and improving their product. And it's very hard sometimes for Synergy to be catching up. And also the Synergy system was not built necessarily to integrate with Google. So it can work. I always had it in my classroom. It does take some time and some skill and some finesse. There is a deck that I've linked here that walks you step by step how to turn on the Google Synergy, the Google Classroom Synergy Grading Sync. And we are always happy to answer questions about this at Help Desk. There is a really awesome team at SIS. Also, some of those questions will be directed towards me. We will walk you through it. We'll figure it out. But starting with this getting started guide in the deck will be where you get started. And that's unfortunately all we're going to really do to talk about that Synergy sync, just because it could take up all this time if we dwell on that. So
there was a quick question, Xander, that I'm not sure if you have a better answer to about, is there a way to grade something but still show it as missing? So adding a 0 that a not turned in assignment would earn, but still showing the student that it's missing. I find that students often say I'm not missing anything because they have a bunch of zeros.
Yes. Yes. And this is a big overall point. I could spend so I work a lot on grading for equity with technology systems. So I can talk a lot about this, and I know I always run over in sessions. No, the answer is no, you can't, unfortunately. If you assign a grade, it will remove the missing. There is in Synergy, there's not in Google Classroom. And so since this is in Google Classroom, I'm just going to say in this area, you can't. But that's another great reason to learn more about Synergy, and they have a lot of functionality, a little less user-friendly, but they have those tools to actually say, I'm grading you at a 50%, but I want it to be flagged as missing in the Synergy platform. But you can't do it in Google because Google kind of has it set. And I will say that Google's grading is very traditional based. It is that very standard 100-point percentage model, and a 0 is a missing. And so it's a very traditional, very largest scale. A lot of things that we're trying to move away from as a district around how we grade, but that is one of the limits of the tool. Well, you're welcome, Gemma. It's really great feedback right there. All right. Okay, so let's go to the simplest assignment that you can give, which is questions. So here's an example of a question. This is, as I was saying, it's kind of like the shortest thing. It's really great for getting students thinking right at the beginning of the day. It's good for an exit ticket. I one year did it so that I had several short answers that were about my mini lesson. And then I had the students go back. And so like the first was a topic sentence. And then the other one was a claim sentence. And then I had them go back to all those questions and compile them into a full paragraph, and each question built on it. But mostly a question is just a really quick, simple check for understanding. So here is a little bit, we're going to go through all the different parts. The question shows up like this. So you normally have your whole question is the title of the assignment. You can choose short answer or multiple choice. If you would like, you can add instructions. So for instance, how can you take better notes on your Chromebook? Is the question, but I also want to let them know I'm including a video below that I want you to watch first to get some ideas and respond to it. So I can add that in instructions. And also this was something I used a lot as a tool where it was kind of a bit of an accountability piece where I'd assign a lot of YouTube videos. I found them engaging for my students. If I kept them short, the YouTube clip, it would be shorter than how long I talk, because as Kathleen knows from my last session, I frequently run over. And that was my Achilles heel as a teacher, is letting my direct instruction go on too long. So I actually found that lots of short, quick YouTube clips worked better. And I'll also say by assigning a YouTube in an assignment, the student can't go on and then start watching down like a YouTube rabbit hole, because they will just see that one YouTube clip. You could see that you can attach all kinds of things. You could do links. You could do a class document where they're adding something to a group document, but then they're answering themselves. So that can all be here. And then up here, you get to choose which classes you'd like to assign it to. So again, if you're doing one prep for multiple sections of a class, you can really easily say, I just want it assigned to all my English classes. If you select only one class, you're even able to say which of my students. So let's say you're doing something that you're like, there's a section of students who I really think could kind of like push in, do some more advanced work. You could assign that to them. If you could say, hey, there's just these 6 students that seem to really be hung up on what makes a good topic sentence, you can assign them a second assignment on a topic sentence. You can select which students you'd like to receive it over here. Grade category, this will connect up to if you set up grade categories in your settings. Points is how much it will add into your grade book. Do not be afraid, in my opinion, to assign things that are ungraded. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I want students to work on, but I don't want to spend a lot of time grading it. And students see that it's like still to do, and it can still be your conference with them. So if you don't think that you're really going to spend a lot of time assessing it, use that ungraded. If you are using points, and I'll go into this later, I am big in grading for equity. And there's this idea of a 50% floor if you're grading with 100 points. And there's a lot of dialogue about why that is that will go beyond the session, but I know lots of teachers at SFUSD are doing that. My recommendation is make it 8 points and only grade either 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 points. So if they don't turn in anything, that is a 4-point answer, which is a 50%. It's still a fail, but it doesn't give them the whole, because Google Classroom is on that kind of old school 100-point math that we've been using for so long. So that's just a tip. If that didn't make sense, don't worry about it. It's a whole other topic, grading for equity. You then put your due date here. And this is great because this will also show up for students. It will say what you still have to do, what's upcoming. So I always recommend really try and hit that due date. Don't worry if you're not going to grade it that date. It's just nice that it shows up for the students, and it will also show up in parent emails when something is expected to be in your gradable section. And then you can choose the topic. And the nice thing about questions, this is what I really, really like. You can say students can reply to each other. That can be a really great tool to get students talking about ideas. That's where I think questions is most powerful, is when you use it as a communication collaboration tool. And then you can also have students can edit answers. You can turn that off if you want it to be more of a summative assessment. But if it's a formative assessment, let them go back and change it and be like, yes, now that's the topic sentence. Great. And you can go back, edit it, and then you can change the grade for them after they're done. All right. Any questions about questions? Oh, and then I'll show you, this is what it looks like when you're grading it. You can see that you have 0 turned in so far. Unfortunately, I was not able to get some examples of students turning things in, but it will show you how many students, if it says which of the following is a simile, you as a teacher would really quickly see like 6 people said the correct answer, and then 4 people said this one, and 1 person said this one. It gives you a really quick snapshot of where people's thinking is. And you can see how easy it is to see in this, like at a glance in the graded section. And you're able to just really quickly grade big chunks, especially when you're doing multiple choice. And even when you're doing open-ended questions, I think, do I have an example of that? No, I don't. Let's say you said, who was the first president of the United States? It will give you every student that writes George Washington. If it says 15 of your students wrote George Washington, you can mark that as correct. You don't have to go through each one. It just says anybody who wrote George Washington, it gives them points. If 6 of them wrote Washington, and you're like, yeah, that's fine. You can mark that one as correct. And all of those will be answered right away. So it can really, really speed up grading, even if it's open-ended, because it will batch all the same answers, and you can decide if it is correct or not, or how many points you want to get, and we'll do it for you. And you're only grading by the different answers. I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to try a 4-minute timer on this one because it's a pretty simple one. If that's too short, we can expand it, but I want to make sure we have time for assignments and rubrics. So creating a question, see if you can choose short answer or multiple choice. Add instructions just for practice. See if you can attach a picture or video from the web. Assign a due date and give it a topic. Well, that timer's going. Hopefully it won't be too distracting, but I just want to show. So it's classwork, create, question. Go show that one more time. I go to my class, go to classwork, create, question. About 3 more minutes to play around with questions. If people feel like they need some more time, just pop that in the chat. But this is our shortest, our easiest one. So just open it up, check it out, and we'll be sure we have lots of times for assignment, quizzes, and rubrics. But 1 more minute. If there's something you noticed or something that I didn't cover, throw it in the chat. So to share with us or a question. All right. Well, I'll open a more. Yeah, I know, Jim. The hardest thing about leading trainings on Google Classroom is that they make so many changes, and they're normally positive. But even just now, I'm looking at the Classroom tab, and it looks slightly different than earlier, like 2 weeks ago, when I made some of these screenshots. They added the grading period. So the default time zone is always your own time zone, the time zone that you are creating it in.
Xander, there's another question in the Q&A that other folks might have. And I don't know if we have enough time to fully answer it, but it was asking if we could talk a little bit about deleting posts and assignments. And there was a reference to an experience where an assignment got deleted in Google Classroom by another teacher, and they had to go in individually to help students find their work in Google Drives.
Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Drive folder, hopefully time permitting, which it looks like I am, again, way over time. But hopefully we can talk a little bit about that, but that had not been planned for my, it's not in this slide deck, but it's a good thing. And I'll definitely think about it for our next time I run this, because that is a really important question. So assignments are our bread and butter. And again, one of the things I love about Google Classroom, I know I should be teaching all students to put their name on their work so they get credit, for real life skills or whatever, but man, was it annoying having to chase people down. And I love that Google Classroom, they can't not put their name on it. It's attached to them. So here is an example of an assignment. Now, assignments, again, as I mentioned before, is basically a really fancy skin on a Google Drive folder that includes the ability to attach a grade to it. But unlike question or even quiz forms, it has nothing attached to it except what you want to add to it. So here's an example of one that I put in. And this is like me trying to come up with an assignment that has every single thing possibly added to it. So I gave it a title. It is, I don't know if you use Frere models or a vocabulary term. And so I gave the instructions. I will admit, sometimes I do not put the instructions because it will be on the hyperdoc. I found that it always helped me to kind of separate out the instructions here. It was almost more of a teaching strategy that I reviewed for myself. Like, wait, what exactly is the task I'm asking? I will say students very rarely read this. They tend to click right into the file. We've been using Google Classroom enough that students know to do that. And that can be hard because in this one I have added, so I say, go into the word bank and select a word that no other student has chosen, because we're like dividing it up as a group. So this file, students can edit. That means there's one file and all the students can see that file and all the students can edit that one file. So that's really good for group work or any kind of group task. I then also included a teacher example. Students can view the file, but they can't do anything with it. So this could also be like a materials assignment, but if you wanted to attach it just to an assignment, you can put it there. So for instance, if I had a reading that I wanted the student to read first and then react to on a hyperdoc, I could do students view the file and upload it, a PDF of the reading. And then this is probably the one everyone's really familiar with. It's the real awesome superpower of Google. You make something and you say, make a copy for each student. And that will automatically make a whole new copy of whatever you put, and it renames it at the top with the student's name first, and then the title that you made it, and it will be a complete copy that the student then gets to edit. This is why I chose that GIF, because students have to have their name on it. They automatically have their name on it. And this is the one that students are like really trained right now. If they're on Google Classroom, they're looking for something like this. But I do encourage you to think of other creative ways to share files with them. You can choose classes again, everything that the question had, you can put here. You also can upload a rubric, and we're going to talk about rubrics later on. But adding a rubric is a really great way to take your grading to like the next level, but also really to help automate it with this Google workflow. So this is what it's going to look like after I've made it. You can then see what the student will see. They'll see that there's a rubric. They can check out the rubric beforehand to see exactly how they're graded. Very few of my students did it, but at least it was there. I tried to encourage them to do it. They can see their different files, and you can even add some comments. And this is really great. And students can ask questions. They can put feedback. It takes a little, you can turn comments off. But I think that if you can really build a student culture where students can ask each other questions like, wait, where's the file? Which of the files do I find the word bank in, and stuff like that. You'd be able to do that. So this, yeah, Clifton, this is saying students can reply to each other. They can, that's under questions. They can use that to, if some student gives an answer like to the question, how does this connect to your own life? Someone can reply, oh yeah, me too. I had this similar experience or something like that. So anyway, so that's the assignment. This is 2:30 we end, right, Kathleen?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think it ends at 2:45.
2:45. Okay, I can slow down. Okay. All right.
Okay.
We're gonna do 5 minutes. Let's do another 4 minutes and just try and create a basic assignment and just kind of play around making an assignment. I'm still going to keep it pretty short because I want to go into rubrics, which I think is something new that a lot of people might not have worked with. And that's where I want to spend some time too. So I'm putting 4 minutes to play around and add an assignment. And you can feel free to turn the sound off and I'll answer some questions verbally as people have them, or, use this time, but 4 minutes of practice time. And okay, then we got a question. Oh, never mind. Clifton, Kathleen responded to Clifton's question. So if you have any questions, feel free to unmute or put in the Q&A. Yeah, fortunately, I was typing a much longer response to Clifton's question because it's so great and I love talking about it, but it really is beyond the scope, and I realized just how hard it was to condense it. But yes, I'm gonna switch back to Google Classroom. I get so passionate about it, and I totally understand what your question is, Clifton, and it's a really smart question. But we're gonna go back to Google Classroom. And so we did basics, some playing around with the assignment. Was there any questions anyone had? Was there anything people ran into, or statements they want to make, positive things they like about using Google Classroom that I didn't cover? All right, so I'm going to keep moving. And we will have hopefully some time at the end where you can just kind of play around and do whatever you want. But the next one that is very popular is quiz assignments. Quiz assignments are kind of this interesting thing. Google Forms can be turned into quizzes. When Google first put the quiz feature on Forms, they did not highlight it on Google Classroom, and it seemed very clear that teachers were excited about it, but they didn't know how to turn their forms into quizzes. So it was kind of one of these things where they made a button that very specifically took the quiz and turned it into a form. And so, gosh, this like so ties into Clifton's question. I'm trying not to go into, but one of the cool things is you can actually grade a quiz with a rubric still. So you could say the traditional, one of my rubric points is they got the question accurate 70% of the time, but then you could also have different rubric items about they explained their thinking, they understood the basic concepts, even if their computation's off. But that's a great conversation though. It's gonna get in the way of things. So when you create a quiz assignment in Google Classroom, you can go to the create and you can go to quiz assignment, and that will immediately pull up a form that has the quiz features of the form turned on. But you can also go to Google Forms, and in its settings, you can turn it into a quiz. I would like to make the argument that it is better teaching practices to make your quizzes first before you're even assigning them, because it makes you backwards plan better and thinking like, okay, well, I know what I'm going to start assessing on the quiz. Now, can I look at my assignments and make sure that they all lead to this quiz? One of the great things about coaching positions like mine is I get to pretend like I do it that way all the time when I'm in the classroom. And of course, absolutely, I would make quizzes on the fly right before the students are getting on the door all the time. But when I was most excited, when I felt I was most successful, it is when I went to Google Forms first, not even thinking about my classroom, starting a blank quiz or a blank form and then a quiz, but going here and setting up a quiz this way. Now, unlike the other ones, I'm going to show how setting up a quiz in real time, because I think it's a little bit more finicky and there's not that one nice, simple way of setting it up. So blank quiz, if you know Forms, most of it is going to be the same. You can set the kind of question you want. So you can title it. So you can say geography quiz. You can, geography quiz. Okay. And then you can put the description, like show that you were paying attention this week. I'd never write like that, but you could just do some intro text. You can also, this is new. This is something that we haven't been able to have before, but you can put bold text, italic text, underline text. You can create links. Remember, this is an open book test. Here's a link to the study guide. You can put that link right there. Numbered lists, great for giving instructions, bulleted lists, things to remember. And then remove formatting is if you copy and paste it into something else, or you realize, hey, I don't like that formatting, you can click that and we'll take it all away. This gives you a little bit more flexibility. Then you have your questions. You are able to choose lots of different types of questions to ask. The most common are multiple choice, checkboxes, which is a form of multiple choice where they can select multiple ones. And then, of course, short answer or paragraph. Some other things, though, I really want to point out. You can do file upload. give me, on my quiz, I want you to find, use Google Drawings to show how you solve the math equation, because you can't necessarily do that with Google Quiz, and then upload that file to the quiz. That is an option that you can do. So that's some other options that you can use. But let's start with the multiple choice. So we'll say, is the US a country? And yes, no. And then once you have it at this point, you can do the answer key, and you can say this is a 2-point question. And then you can also add answer feedback. So if it's incorrect, you can say it is a country. For correct answers, you can say great job. I even showed in his example in my other session that you can use and include a video. So if you have something that you want them to review, if they get it wrong at the end, you can create a video or a link to a study guide for what those can do. Now, I will say, we won't have time to get into practice sets, but practice sets do this with AI. So you don't need to put those in yourself. You don't need to find those yourself. So if that seems really interesting to you that you can do that, I would say start investigating the practice sets materials that Google is starting to put out, because then that's all automatically done for you. But if you want to just control it, or a little bit of a simpler way, you can add the feedback here. Then you just need to make sure you have selected which of these. So, okay, done. And then you go to answer key. And this is where you say, is the US country? You say yes. So that is not going to show that to the students, but you can see which one you've selected as the correct answer. You can decide if questions are required or not. I saw a lot of students who kept skipping questions. I tended to make everything required, but you can do different approaches there. There's other things you can do. Is you can go to section based on answer, right? Maybe you want them to stop the quiz if they get too many wrong. I actually did this when I was placing students into vocabulary groups. If they couldn't get to a certain level of knowing vocabulary, I didn't have them keep going through a test and choosing random multiple choice answers, because that just meant they were guessing all the time, and that actually meant that it was a less accurate test. So at a certain point, I would just cut them off by saying, go to the end. So you can say which section you want them to. You can say submit form. If they don't know that the US is a country, they're not going to do the rest of this test. It's not going to work. You can just say submit form. So there's even that kind of cool opportunities to do cool things like that. You can also add photos or images. This is absolutely great to reach different learners, different learning styles. You can give little prompts or images to get brains thinking, and add those in. And you can add videos, you can ask response questions to videos, all sorts of things. And then you can also use sections to chunk the text. So this can be all about Wyoming geography, and then you answer sections there, and then you can create just a bunch of questions about Wyoming, and then you can do another section which would be all on Idaho geography. When the student then takes the quiz, they're only going to get a few questions at a time. And what's nice is when you chunk the text like that, or chunk the questions like that, it can really lower students' anxiety around it. When they sometimes see this giant list of questions, it can really trigger some of those fight or flight, and you don't get to see what the student's actually capable of. And this is really great. I remember one time I had a student who just could not make it through a math test, and I knew they were really smart. And I had a paper test, and I just cut it up into strips and just gave them the test one question at a time and they ace the test. I really like the fact that Google Classroom allows me to use that scaffold and support for all my students really easily. And I am not taping back a test together, which I had to do with that one particular student. So that is the quiz assignment. Oh, but the one thing I want to say about the quiz assignment is there's also this settings tab. Don't ignore this settings tab. So make this a quiz. That needs to be turned on. You can decide, do you want to release the grades immediately after each submission or later after manual review? Here's the thing I'm going to say about this. You can really only release immediately after submission if it's multiple choice. If you have any constructed answer questions, any short form questions, it kind of defaults. They might have changed this, but for the longest time, it was defaulting to just marking it as incorrect by default. So I had a lot of students like really like I didn't realize this was on. So students submitted their test and then immediately this collective wail went up across the class because they all failed, because only their multiple choice questions were graded and anything that was open-ended, like write a paragraph, was immediately marked as 0. I had to really scramble and say, sorry guys, I didn't know what I was doing. So if you have open-ended questions, always switch it to later after manual review. Locked mode is the idea that if you're on a Chromebook, they will not be able to navigate away from the quiz, or it will just shut it down right away. This is supposed to be a cheating protection. It works sometimes. I would say it helps catch a selection of cheating. I still recommend that you have students sitting in rows and all facing front if you're a quiz that you really want to be sure there is no collaboration going on. For a summative assessment at the end, and you stand at the back and you can see what the screens are, where the screens are, because lock mode does not always work. You can, and then you can choose if they just see missed questions, or if they just see correct answers, if they can see the point values. You can select all of those, and default question point value. As I mentioned earlier, as part of my grading for equity, I always did 8 points on every question, with 4 being the minimum you could get. If I wanted to do that practice, I would just choose 8. And that means every time I create a new question, it's going to automatically give it 8 points, and I don't have to change it each time. Are there any questions about quiz assignments? Here's a, oh, I did make one. So you can see the capitalization. You can add multiple checkboxes. Each one can have its own image. Great way to bring in other students. Let's see. You can do reflections at the end. And then, oh yeah, so the review your questions. If you say, yes, I had it set, that was how you can use that. Let me show you. So that's, so I have, go next. This is where I edit, if I edit this, it says, do you want to review your answers? If yes, go all the way back to the beginning, right? So if no, you can submit form. So that's a cool way that you can remind students, especially if you're building those study habits that you want them to do on the end of year tests, you know, remind them. You can go back to the beginning and you can put that in as part of that. So that is quiz assignments. All right. Let's take 5 minutes to play around, and then I'm going to try and do a big chunk at the end for people to actually, yeah, I think we will keep it at 4, and then we'll just do a big chunk at the end to just explore, play, do whatever you want, and ask questions. So 4 minutes on the clock to make a quiz assignment. I know I'm going really fast. Kathleen's doing an amazing job answering all these questions. But feel free during this time to either unmute or to post it in the chat. Oh no, it's webinar. They can't unmute. Right. I know it's not a lot of time, but we have 30 more seconds, and I really want to make sure we get to rubrics. So we're going to get that. Next, in about 30 seconds, we'll come back. All right. Okay. So if there's anything that came up, definitely drop it in the chat or in Q&A. But otherwise, we're going to move on to rubrics. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but I am really interested in grading for equity. And rubrics are a good, big part of this. And Google Classroom does it super, super well. You can do these in Synergy. And one of the nice things about Synergy is that parents can see the rubrics. But for me, it was much more about a closer conversation with the student and the teacher. And it's also a lot easier for me to grade with the rubrics in Google Classroom. And I know that I needed to squeeze every piece of efficiency out of my time as a teacher. So I'm going to highly recommend you use the Google Classroom rubrics over the Synergy rubrics. So here is the one thing about Google Classroom rubrics is that you need to use a template, which they don't make really easily available. So Kathleen, I believe we already did find the rubric template link. Is that accurate now?
Yeah, it should be in the resources tab.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. I did that.
Yeah.
Um, and so they might have fixed this, but for the longest time, you needed a template and it wasn't clear how to get that template. So I found a template that works. And here is an example of it. I don't know if you know.
If anybody clicks that just popped up, it says rubric template at the bottom of your screen. For everyone else, if you click on that, that'll link you to what Xander's showing.
And I don't know if you know this, but this is the best way. You used to do that thing where you'd like do /copy instead of /edit, and it would force a Google Doc to be a copy. You can now do /template /preview, and you get this nice, more visual look. And then you can click, your user can click use template to copy it. They don't have to copy it to see it with the old way. So if you're seeing this, use template pops up, you click use template, and it will automatically make a copy for you. And I'm just going to show you a little bit about how to use this. So you put your points value. So you enter your standard here. So let's say I'm doing, my standard is going to be on topic sentences. I like default to topic sentences because they're so easy to quickly define in a PD, but they're like not the best thing to like emphasize all the time with students. So forgive me for that. But then, so first you say what the standard is that you're grading. Now you can put in a description of it. And so I will say each paragraph begins, is this, I can zoom in too if that's small on people's screen, or no, I can't. Can I? Well, okay. Each paragraph begins with a topic sentence that introduces the reader to the paragraph. So this is where I kind of explain what the heck I'm talking about. And now I have my point values. Again, I always use 8 as my top one and 4 as my bottom one. That way it's a 50% to 100%, as is put in our district grading guidance. But your grade book is your own. You can put whatever scores you want there. And then you can also give titles to each of the levels. I've always defaulted to these ones: mastering, proficient, developing, needs support, and not accessible. So you'll see I keep these the same on every single one of these. And then I do a level description. So this is where I set out what an 8, a mastering, would look like. So it would be something like every paragraph in the essay starts with a relevant topic sentence. And then 7 would be some paragraphs in the essay start with a topic sentence. And then you just go down all the way. And so you'd say, you know, no, not accessible for me would always be like no paragraphs written, right? I can't tell if you can do topic sentence or not because you haven't written a paragraph anyways. And so you'd write it like that, and then you fill that out for the entire rubric. Again, like I was saying with Google quizzes, I think this is the most powerful and best done when you are building your rubric before you do anything else. It really focuses you on what you're going to assess. And then as you start to construct the assignment, you sit there and you think like, wait, I don't have them write paragraphs. This assignment won't be accessible by what I'm trying to teach. Or it will be like, wait, do I have some time in my planning to teach topic sentences to the class? Because I always say, if you don't teach it, don't assess it. So I never do anything like creativity. If I don't have a creativity lesson, personally, I don't put creativity in my rubric because I haven't taught them that. How is it fair for me to then like grade them on that? So I think that this is a really great thing to do at the beginning of your unit, thinking through everything you want to do. And what's nice too is then you can start breaking this rubric up. Once you have your major rubric for your end of year assignment, I could take topic sentences and copy and paste it. So I just copy it and I say like file new spreadsheet, and I just do this and I say topic sentence rubric. And now when I go to upload this to my topic sentence formative assessment, the rubric's already there. The students are already familiar with it. By the time we get to our final assignment and they have the full rubric of everything on their essay, it's all made of the pieces that I did like every step of the way. So this is one of the reasons why I think drafting out your rubrics in Google Sheets with a template beforehand is such a great practice that I highly, highly recommend it. But now, once you've done all that, you are going to go back to a Google Classroom assignment. Okay, this was, I think I switched my link at one point and forgot to update it somewhere. But let's see, what did I did something wrong here. Forgive me, I'm going to be real quick to figure this out. We're going to go to ELA demo class A. Here we go, Frere model. All right, so Kathleen has turned in her Frere model, and this is what I love. Look at how, I just think this is so wonderful and easy to do. I have my rubric right over here, and I've got my assignment here. So this is a Frere model to learn what the word sovereign means. Kathleen has 4 different activities she has to add for each question. So she has to do characteristics, a definition, examples, and non-examples. So I go here and I see characteristics. Mastered, all 4 words have at least 3 accurate characteristics. Let's say that everyone looks like this one. I see it's got 3 accurate characteristics. Oh, no, it's not that accurate because it says democratic, and I know that not all sovereigns have to be democratic. So I can come down to proficient. All 4 words have at least 2 accurate characteristics. I click that one, and then I move on to examples. What was my examples rubric? So mastered, all 4 words have at least 3 examples. King, queen, pharaoh, shogun. Those are all accurate examples. I click that. So it gives an 8 out of an 8, 7 out of 8. Non-examples, I tell Kathleen she's got to check her work. She's got to double check everything's there. I just can't say if she knows how to do a non-example or not. I'm going to have to give her no evidence for that one. Gives a 4 out of 8. And then, oh wait, sorry, that was definition. So definition, like a king or something. And again, so all the parts of a definition are provided, and the definition is accurate and clear 7th grade language. And I just move down until I find missing parts of speech and pronunciation, or the definition is not accurate, maybe appears copy and pasted, some kind of text, and I'm going to find, yeah, so this is like a king or something, pronunciation or parts of speech are missing, and the definition is not accurate or copy pasted. And so now I have all of my, all of the different sections selected, and then it automatically calculates out what it thinks the grade will be based on the rubric. And this is just so, so important. And I can add private comments here. Kathleen, you showed excellent non-examples in class today. Please try again. Let's also meet and discuss how to use a dictionary one more time. Right? So I can add a private comment. She knows for each of them where she's falling, and it gives me the calculated grade. It's right next to it, which is awesome. I don't have my rubric over here and I'm flipping through papers over here. It's all together like this. And so this is what I just think just makes such an amazing grading tool. I like the fact that students know exactly how they're going to be assessed. I also like that it holds me accountable, because as I used to say, I remember going home on a Friday night with my big stack of papers, and I'm like, I'm going to do such a great job of giving feedback. And the first one I graded would be, oh wait, are we at time? It's 2:45.
I was just gonna let you finish that sentence and then interrupt you to say that it's 2:45.
Okay. Oh, so sorry, but I'm really glad we got all the way through rubrics and how to do it. Just really quickly, there's some more information in this deck around Drive and Guardian emails. That was just kind of ways to find your Drive and what a Guardian email looks like for sending students information about assignments. And then some more information about DOT. Thank you guys so much. Sorry, I just can't stop myself from talking on and on and on, but I love this stuff. And please send help desk tickets. I love answering help desk tickets.
And also, I wanted to just make a plug for Synergy. There's 2 sessions of office hours after this. So I know a lot of folks had questions around grading and how things sync with Synergy. So I'll just like do a little plug for that to the micro sessions back to back or office hours for Synergy.
I'm really glad we use about this stuff. I'm always so long in the mouth and run over. I really appreciate the positive comments. All right, I'm going to close out the session and thank you all for coming. And Kathleen, thank you for being an amazing moderator. She's been great. All right.
All right. Bye.